Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready? The Cougars kick off the 2024 season with a home battle against Southern Illinois. Your home for the best coverage of Cougar football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It is JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Thanks for being with us, everybody. It is finally here. None of this week zero garbage, although it was a very welcomed garbage this weekend in my home.
I consumed all of that garbage with a smile on my face.
College football does something to you, man. I mean, I'm watching Zach Wilson in the third. I guess it was their third preseason game because they only do 3 now unless you play in the Hall of Fame game. But Zach Wilson played like the entire game basically yesterday, and I'm like watching all of it. It was okay football, but we'll take it this time of year. Now all the prognostications and all the things, all the guessing, it's all still right in front of us here. It's week 1, though. We have our local teams actually playing in the college football future of a 12-team playoff. Starts this week. It's very, very exciting stuff. Joining us on the program right now, Dan Wetzel, College Football Enquirer, the podcast. Give it a listen. You can, of course, read his byline at Yahoo Sports as well. Dan, what's going on, man? Thanks for being with us.
Well, I watched some Canadian football last night. And then on FS1, they were replaying Ohio State, Michigan from last year, so I started watching that.
We're desperate for starving.
I'm with you. If we want to do like a pathetic, is this like a support group?
I'm part of that group. I'm in. We're all sickos
I was
together,
like, this
Dan.
is so stupid. Turn it up. This is so dumb. Give me more of it.
Wonder who wins this game.
I know.
Boy, Ohio State's looking good. Maybe not. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, hey, honestly, week 1 was pretty fun, right? Did you have fun on Saturday?
Yeah, it was. I like the Ireland opener. I'm generally like college football should be played in America, but it's a great scene. Obviously, people are really fired up for the trip because it's Dublin and all that, and they had a great crowd for game day, and it was a really good game. And Georgia Tech played terrific. I liked how they played, but just something special to kick off the season. So I think actually they should have. I think teams should be begging to get into those other 2 windows because no one's got anything else to watch.
Yeah,
like this game occurs a month later and maybe no one notices. Instead, everyone paid attention and knows what Georgia Tech's about.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing in terms of like, I guess I'll watch this because it's on. I was watching Florida A&M versus Norfolk State on Saturday night, and I went, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing. And then one of my sons walks in and goes, Florida A&M's 25th in the country? I was like, slow your roll. No, in the FCS, yes, they are. But we'll take whatever we can get. And it was actually games that counted going up on the TV screen. But it's going to get big this weekend, of course. Here locally in Salt Lake, we're just so dang excited about the rivalry game between Utah and BYU. Well, the rivalry game will happen in November, but the rivalry itself of both teams being back in the conference and us talking about that Big 12. What does the Big 12 look like now with these 16 teams, and what do you think they're going to be as a conference this year?
Exciting, fun, interesting. We did this on our podcast. I think we made the case for like 10 different teams winning it. You start going through it, and you're like, well, if KJ Jefferson's he transferred to UCF, and Gus Malzahn's good with running QBs, and I don't know. You can make a case. I just think week in, week out, it's going to be really interesting. Big games. It's going to be it's a lot more like the NFL, where it's just a lot of even teams and even programs. And I don't think anyone's going to go through unscathed. I don't see anybody being, at least on paper, dramatically better than someone else. And I just think it's going to be a fun season. Just a lot of really interesting games and trips. And, it may not be the best at trying to get 2 or 3 teams in the playoff, but winning that championship is going to be something else and a real accomplishment.
Utah picked to win the Big 12. Do you view it that way, or do you have another team you think is going to rise above?
I've been picking Kansas State, but certainly with a nod to Utah. You don't ever really want to go against one of Kyle's teams. He knows how to win. This is the team that's, just probably the best program on paper going in right now in the last 5 years. I like the Kansas State team a little bit. I like their quarterback. It's also really well coached. So I think those are kind of my top two. But you could certainly make a really good case for Oklahoma State being very good. I actually believe in Iowa State. Arizona's got the quarterback. I guess we can go down the whole list here, like we said. But I would certainly not be surprised at all if the Utes win this thing.
We were also kind of breaking this one down, and Kyle Whittingham today having his first real game week presser. And, man, they just must be chomping at the bit to see what these guys can do after Cam Rising hasn't played since January 1 of 2023, and after Brant Keithy, who's an All-American candidate in a lot of people's eyes, hasn't played in almost 2 years. Tons of injuries that were out all last year are coming back this year for the Utes, and so they have their eye on doing something special. But, you were talking about Kansas State and, the Kansases and the Arizonas and the Iowa States. Even JJ and I both love what Matt Campbell does there in Ames, but of course, this BYU team probably wasn't one of those 10 teams that you had picked to make a path to the Big 12 championship game. Maybe you did, though. I don't know. What's BYU? What's their look this year, and what Kalani Sitake has to figure out first is who that starting quarterback is?
Yeah, I think that's the question. A lot of these teams are set at the most important position, and you don't know with BYU. So, but BYU always will surprise you. They're always tough, and they'll always surprise you. And I think a lot of these teams in the Big 12, it's hard to just be year in. If you say who's going to win the Big 10, you're like, okay, let's start with Ohio State, or let's start with Michigan. They're almost always good, or Georgia's always good. I think a lot of the programs in the Big 12 are going to be up and down year to year, and I think maybe that's what BYU is. I did watch Big 12 media days, and they seem pretty confident in what they had, so I'll be intrigued to see what they have. But they got to get a quarterback. Where I think Utah, if everyone's healthy, you know what their quarterback's going to be. You know what the quarterback's going to be at Arizona, at K-State, at some of these other places.
We're entering a different world here in college football this season. Everything's different. The 12-team playoff is something we've been waiting for, but it's certainly going to change college football. How much do you think it's going to change, and what's going to be so different with the 12-team playoff as opposed to the 4-team, and its impact on how college football operates?
Well, I just think how you view the season week in, week out, and then how many teams are going to be in this thing late in the year. Last year, Florida State won all of its games and didn't get in the playoff. This year, they're currently in 17th place in the ACC, but they could still end up the 3 seed.
Sure.
So, there's just so much winning your conference now matters so much. And there's more teams that I think are looking at a season and going, okay, we can do this. And where like 5 years ago, you're not really, none of these teams in the Big 12 are legitimately going to go, all right, we can win the national championship, or we can even get into the 4-team playoff. If you look at how many, I think it's 14 teams made the playoff in 10 years of the 4-team playoff. It's Alabama and Clemson got 2 spots, and then maybe it's Georgia or LSU, and it's Ohio State or Michigan. That's pretty much, and then a couple teams would slip in every once in a while, but you didn't really have a chance. You didn't realistically say we're going to have to thread some needle to make a miracle season just to get into this playoff. That isn't the case anymore. And yeah, you're not going to win the national title, but like I said, you get a top 4 seed, you get a bye into the quarterfinals. What if you're 5 through 8 and you get to host a game? Hey, it's even more fun than getting a bye. If let's say Utah ends up a 6 seed and they get to host a game in Salt Lake City, or BYU for that matter, and it's a Michigan or a Penn State coming for a playoff game, the way to showcase your campus and your program, and that game alone will mean so much. So a little of the way basketball it's not like you go in and say, oh, we can win the national title, but it's like we can make March Madness. We can make the Sweet 16. We're going to hang a banner for that. We made a Final Four. Oh, my gosh, right? There's levels of success, and they are attainable to so many more schools that I think there's 50, 60 schools going into the season with really high hopes for what I think most fans would look at as a special season, where a couple years ago when that playoff was small and the only way to really be good was to be able to stack top 5 recruiting classes, you go in the season and maybe there's 5 or 6 teams that thought we could get into the playoff, and that's about it. So I think it's a lot more fun for all the people in the and you know, if you're Utah and you end up the 3 seed or the 4 seed and you're going to get a quarterfinal game against, you know, in a big time quarterfinal playoff game, you've got a shot. That's pretty awesome. That wasn't laying there before.
Dan Wetzel, College Football Enquirer, the podcast. You can take a listen to that and find it wherever fine podcasts are found, where you download those podcasts, and also Yahoo Sports, of course. Dan, what's the G5 situation going forward in college football, like with the playoff? How are they going to – I mean, obviously after 2 years, they're going to have a revamp. Probably, I would imagine they would add more teams even. I don't know what the perfect number is, but we've always heard kind of 16 as maybe being that number. But where does the rest of college football, the G5 included, but even like, you know, your ACCs and your Big 12s in the world of the SEC and the Big 10?
Well, it's perilous. That's the problem. I am a huge believer that this playoff should be at 12 and the G5 should get a team in. And it's one spot, and it's going to be the 12 seed, okay? And that's it. And give the Mountain West a chance for something to play for. Give the American, whatever. You have that special season. One of these years a MAC team goes 12-0. You want that. They get in. It's not a big deal. It's one spot. But they're going to have to be pretty good in these next 2 years and at least play well in that game, because it is, you know, the SEC and the Big Ten they just want all the cookies. They just want everything. Mm-hmm. And so it's like one more spot, one more bit of revenue. They kick the G5 out and get one more spot for their teams. And, you know, I get some of it. You're going to go into a playoff and the 12 seed could be unranked, right? You know, it could be Memphis, could be Boise State or something like that. Maybe they're unranked or they're ranked 22nd. It would be a really behoove. I just think the sport's better when everyone's got some kind of chance, and it would be exciting to have those underdog teams in and let people build and go that way. And so it would be great if this year Boise State turns out to, you know, as that team or something like that, has a really good season and either, you know, at least plays very well in that bit. The group of 5 has got to prove itself a little bit this year, because the Wolves are at the door trying to knock them out. And I just hate that. I just think this is the one of the beauties of college football. We were basically talking about this, right? What we were willing to watch is it is 134 teams. It is a circus. It is a zoo. No one on earth would create a league with 134 teams in it and one championship, right? You got all these different types of schools: city schools, country schools, state schools, religious institutions, military academies, you name it. Big, small, we got it all. And you want them all to matter in some way. We get joy out of all of it. And it's not going to stop Ohio State and Georgia from playing for the national title if we at least give a little bit of a carrot to the Mountain West and everybody else.
There's my skepticism about the playoff, though, is it feels like it's just going to become the Big Ten and SEC Invitational as they get more powerful and have more money. The rich will get richer. You disagree with that, or do you think that that's where this could be headed once they, even especially if they add, you know, get to 14, 16? It's just going to make the Big Ten and the SEC more powerful.
Yeah, it will, but at least if there's some access, you have a chance, right? And really there wasn't access much in the past. It's basically been the SEC and the Big Ten to a degree, but mainly the SEC or really teams in the Southeast that can win this. So you have to have that guaranteed access. I don't think people are fans. No offense to these fans, but I don't think they're BYU and Utah fans because they got into it and thought one day we're going to win the national championship. But to have at least a chance to try is what you want. You know, I always look back on that team with Alex Smith and Urban Meyer at Utah that finished 6th in the poll and that didn't even get thought that they could compete, what would that team have done? Could they win a game? Sure. I think they could have won a game. Could they have won it all? Probably not, but who knows? And you just want to have that chance. So I think the more teams that at least have some hope to participate in the postseason, it's not about necessarily winning a national title. It's just about being at least in the mix, and instead of just saying, well, we got to kick you out so we get a fifth team from the SEC or the Big Ten. That's what we really got to guard against.
He's Dan Wetzel. You can listen to his podcast, College Football Enquirer, the podcast. Go take a listen. Read his byline, of course, Yahoo Sports. Dan, we appreciate it. We're looking forward to actual football games that actually matter. But even then, we'll probably find a way to complain about them. So we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, man. Take care. Anytime.
All right, there you go.
Thanks, Dan. Love his work.
He's awesome.
Just you if you like to put a Mount Rushmore of college football
writers,
media, writers, he's right up. He's on that.
He's seen it all.
He's great.
Hopefully,
it's great to talk to him.
Hopefully, we'll be able to get a little bit of an idea. You know what stinks about all this is that if you're a BYU fan, everybody talks about, man, you're right. There's 8 or 10 teams that could be in that mix. BYU's never in that 8 or 10
They're not
mix.
talking about BYU when they say that, and that should grind your gears.
That should piss you right off.
So, and trust me, we saw Salty Kalani today. You don't think?
Ooh, is that
you don't think they hear that?
Is that the ice cream flavor that he picked now?
Salty Kalani at the creamery.
Broncos cocoa beans.
Did we just create a new flavor at the creamery?
That's why it's listed as an or. So you keep asking the questions. We have a plan, guys. We know what we're doing. We've been through this before, and we're going to be just fine.
Salty Kalani, it's just pure.
He almost went full Saban on us.
Vanilla ice cream with just.
You never go full Saban in Provo, though. You never go full Saban in Provo.
No, that's a new. No, you know what? New ice cream flavor. Rat poison. Boom. give me the rat poison. We're not taking that rat poison, boys. We're not doing it. Right here, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.